I think what still kind of hurts me a little bit or frustrates me is that often it feels like the comments and the suggestions and the you should do this or God hates that is driven out of fear, arrogance, pride, oversimplification, that we can just take one verse and apply it to this like incredibly complex situation. Things just aren't so black and white or cut and dry. Marriages are supposed to work out. You committed your life together forever. That's what it's supposed to be, right? But sometimes it doesn't. And we can't put the sanctity of marriage over the dignity of a person.
Hello, my lost little lambs. Welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, my name's Megan, and this is what it normally is. This is my house, this is my mess, this is me cleaning and getting life back in order. What you're watching here is a Sunday reset. This is my typical Sunday reset, no big whoop-de-doo. But what's a little bit different today is that we are going to talk about spirituality, talk about religion, all that kind of stuff. I think the last few months, if you're familiar with psychology and the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I have been in survival mode for the past few months. I have been at this bottom level where like my health has been a struggle, and I just haven't had the capacity to really think much about higher level things, right? Like spirituality, for example, and self-actualization and all of that good stuff. And I am feeling better. I did have a chance to check in with a dermatologist. They gave me a topical steroid that really helped my eye, and hopefully will help me like stave off any future eye issues until I can go to an allergist and get this really taken care of from the root. But I'm feeling better enough that I feel like I do have time to think about spirituality and religion a little bit. What sparked this, aside from all of the national news lately, which I will not talk about because I'm quite honestly just sick to my stomach, and so we're not going to talk about that. This isn't why you're here. However, what really sparked it was Dawn from The Minimal Mom and her sort of updated Q&A recently. I think she posted it maybe a week or two ago, where she really went hard. Like she really was honest, and like I would say brutally honest about where she's at with religion, where she's at with church, where she's at with Christians, which she's basically hurt. She's hurt, she's upset, she's frustrated. And for the most part, I think what she explained is that she's frustrated with the lack of nuance and the lack of care for humans when it comes to people who are uber religious, and who are super focused on the rules and regulations. And that really, really resonated with me. Now, Dawn is, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about her because I don't know her personally, and this is my channel. I'm going to talk about me. But I'm using her as a jumping off point because what she has said just really, really resonated with me. And I think she articulated extremely well what the crux of the issue is with fundamentalism in any religion, but in this particular case with Christianity, where people are willing to put the sanctity of their religion, right? In her case, right, the sanctity of marriage above what she said, the dignity of humans, the dignity of a person. And dignity, just in her estimation, the way she explained it, means choice, having freedom, having the ability to be your best self, right? Having dignity. If you think about people, I work a lot with a lot of people at the end of their life or in their later years who are in nursing homes, who are still maybe at home, but their spouse is now their caregiver or their family is now their caregiver. And when somebody is in a position of vulnerability like that, dignity becomes an issue, because a lot of times in nursing homes, people are not given choice. They are not given opportunities to be their best self or to have purpose and express themselves freely and make meaning of their lives, right? And to do things that help them to feel dignified. They're on somebody else's schedule. They're following somebody else's rules. They can only do as much as whoever is caring for them allows them to do. And that's not very dignified. And so when Dawn said that line, right, like you can't put the sanctity of marriage over the dignity of a person, it really, really struck me because I felt that. Like, that's such a beautiful way to put it. When I was in the church and got divorced, I definitely felt that pressure that Dawn was talking about, where it's like people will come at you and say, well, you didn't try hard enough, or God hates divorce, or, you know, marriage is forever and you made a covenant, you made a promise, you're not allowed to break it. Like, how dare you, right? Without caring about what I was going through as a human, as a person, as an individual, without taking into account how much I was suffering or how my husband was treating me, how he was acting, how his behavior was affecting me in negative ways, right? None of that mattered because we, on paper, were Christians and we were married. And for a lot of religious people, that's all that matters. And so anyway, I'm getting into this because I've been thinking a lot lately about my exit from religion and why I'm no longer religious, why I'm no longer a Christian specifically. I'm no longer an evangelical Christian. And I was talking with my friend Beth last night, and I was just like, you know, I'm feeling a little lost. I'm feeling a little bit empty right now because, you know, I had a really productive day yesterday. What you're watching here on the screen was Sunday. Yesterday in real time was Wednesday, and I had the day free of appointments, but I still took my daughter to daycare, and my son was at school, and so I went home. I was super productive at home with laundry and vacuuming and all kinds of stuff, and I was super, super productive with all of my billing documentation for all of the clients that I had already seen this week, and I got 100% caught up. There was nothing else on my to-do list that I had to do, which is unusual for me. And yet I was still sitting there with a pit in my stomach, knots in my stomach, feeling like there was just something missing. There was something else. There was somewhere else I should be, something else I needed to do. And Beth brought up, she's like, well, maybe you need Jesus. Or I don't know if she said it or I said it, but it was kind of a joke, but kind of not a joke, right? Like maybe there is, I know a lot in Christianity, a lot of times people talk about like a God-sized hole for people who are not Christians. And you know, it is funny, right? It's like there is something missing. I personally no longer believe that it is the Judeo-Christian God. Like, I don't think that is what is missing for me. And I can tell you that I was a Christian for, I don't know, 35 plus years, right? And I still felt that hole, okay, much of the time. So I don't think Jesus is the reason for the season here for me. But what if there is still an opportunity to be spiritual, to be connected with myself, to be connected with nature, to be connected with my children, my family, my friends, to come together with others in the community for a common good, right? What if those things are spiritual? And And, I woke up this morning and as I do, I find all of my life information from YouTube. Well, now also ChatGPT, but mostly YouTube. And I just typed in spirituality after deconstruction, right? Because I've been to church, I've been a Christian, I've read the Bible, I've prayed and prayed and prayed. And none of that was really satisfying. And quite honestly, even if I did believe in God, like Dawn from Minimal Mom, I believe she said she still is very much a Christian or a Christ follower. She is just kind of fed up with Christians and the church, right? Capital C church. And I think even if I was still a believer, I would feel the same way. Like church and Christians, there's just a lot of baggage with that for me. So how do I find meaning in spirituality, right? So I typed it into Google or to YouTube, rather, and what popped up was this woman, I believe, I'm going to butcher it, but I'll correct it in editing later, but I believe her name is Britt Hartley or Britt Hartman, either one of those. I'll put the correct one here. And I've heard her before. I heard her originally on the Mormon Stories podcast. She's an ex-Mormon, but now she is an atheist spiritual director, which I did not know that could exist. But I heard her months and months ago talking about spirituality as somebody who is no longer religious. And what popped up today when I looked her up was an interview that she was doing with this guy named Rhett, who I guess is on the Earworms podcast or Ear Biscuits podcast. I don't know. It's a super popular podcast. It's like millions of followers, but I'm not familiar. But anyway, he is a deconstructed Christian, an ex-Christian who's now an atheist. And so he was interviewing her, and it was almost, I think, like a 2-hour podcast. I haven't even finished it. But there were so many good nuggets from her about how to find meaning and how to find connection and how to sort of fill that quote unquote God-sized hole without all of the myth, right? Without having to buy into things that you don't really believe. And I'll put a clip in here of like how she worded it better than I can. Oh, there's a cookie from Costco that I can't eat, by the way, where I'm not. And there's some antibiotics that the dermatologist gave me that I stopped taking because I'm sick of being on antibiotics. But anywho, this lady, so brilliant. I'll put a clip in here.
Atheist spirituality, that just sounds like the craziest thing I've ever seen. You guys are so desperate. You're so desperate to just reject God in every way that you can and still get all the good stuff that religion. Let's tease that out a little bit, because I can see people getting defensive about that.
Spirituality at its core is a connection to self and a connection outside of self. And so this is why in spirituality there's usually like eyes we see a lot in spirituality, and also spirals, because you're always digging deeper inside and connecting deeper outside of you. For some people that includes a higher power or the supernatural. For me as an atheist, it doesn't necessarily. That I can really connect to the outside world without a sense of the supernatural. For me, I connect to the story of humanity and to nature and to people and to ideas and to conversations. So I'm very connected in my life in a way that I can say that I live a very connected life. I'm always digging deeper, exploring more of my inner world and connecting deeper outside of me. And it just doesn't include a supernatural because of, where I landed with my beliefs on that. So atheistic spirituality to me, or even just secular spirituality in general, has been the spiritual path that has most paid off for me, because I get the most benefits with the least amount of dogma and downsides.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I don't know what clip I put in, but you heard her explain what I was trying to say much better than I can, I'm sure. I will just trust that my editing self picked a good one. But all of this to say, right? All of this to say, I'm just having a really, really, really hard time now that I have the energy and space to really consider my spirituality again, now that I have the time to consider exploring my well-being and what I want my life to look like beyond just survival mode, right? Like beyond just trying to fix my puffy allergic eye and you know, dealing with all the school drop-offs and pickups and whatever. Like now that I have a little more breathing room, what do I want life to look like? How do I want to live my life? What principles and standards and values do I hold, and how am I living that out? This lady also talks a lot about, like, you know, I think a lot of Christians or religious people in general will say, like, oh, if you don't have religion, like if you don't have God or the threat of hell, right, then how do you have morality? Like, what's your morality based on? Which I always find so interesting because I feel like I have morality, right? I have a strong sense of right and wrong. I have a strong sense of, like, I know what hurts me and what makes me feel pain or suffering. Like, I won't do that to other people. How about that? Like, that seems like a good standard. As much as possible, right? Like, we all make mistakes. We all say things we regret, or we all maybe get a little overstimulated and yell at our kids or whatever. But for the most part, I think I try to honor other people's autonomy. We got a little ceramic ghosty from the farmer's market. Super cute. But anyway, you know, I feel like it is very possible to have a strong sense of morality and justice without religion. And I'm actually far more concerned with people whose only reason for living a moral life is that they are afraid of consequences. That seems less moral and more fear-based, quite honestly, or more like, you know, consequence-based. And so, anyway, that's my thoughts on that. So what do I want? And how do I want to be living now that I have more breathing room? I think, and who knows how long I'll have more breathing room, so I'm just trying to, like, think this through now while I have it. It may be fleeting. So maybe I can lay a foundation now. One of the things that Britt was saying is for women, well, men too, I guess, but she talks a lot about how it is to be an atheist as a woman, right? Or how to come out of religion as a woman, because obviously that's her experience. And it is different for men and women, I think. And I'll put a clip here about that.
Women tend to pay a higher cost for being in religion. They're going to give up more of their life, especially if you're in a patriarchal kind of religion where you get married and have children before you kind of know who you are, which is the case in a lot of kinds of Christianity, including Mormonism. And so women will often, when I have female clients, we have more to grieve. We have to have a funeral for the woman who never got to be because she was set on this path so early. Another thing is women don't get to finish their human development in ways that men in patriarchal religion often do. So the most common thing that I come across is that men will say, you know, I don't believe this religion is true, but it was beneficial to me in some ways. Whereas women, when they find out it's not true, I have to mourn that I had 5 kids. I don't even know who I am. There's always been a man in between me and God. I don't even know what my beliefs are. I have no idea who I am because women, their voices are a lot more controlled in patriarchal religion. And so that's just a different experience. And so what happens often to men is that their spiritual enlightenment path post-religion includes a lot of ego dissolving and realize that the universe doesn't revolve around you. That tends to be common for men. As patriarchal religions is really built for a male ego. And they got to be full people. Even if they had kids, they got to have careers. And so they actually need to reduce some of that over attachment to their ego. Whereas women will need to have the opposite journey. They need to actually take up more space and date themselves and get louder and start talking and figure out who they are. And they actually need to start to center themselves.
So yeah, so for women, for me, right, like being in my body and not just thinking about it, because I tend to be a thinker. I think about my emotions more than I let myself feel them. But for me to find spirituality through movement, through being in my body, through interacting with others and with nature, I think is a good start. And you know, as I reflect on that, for the last few months, I had this walking pad in my basement. Last year around this time, I was taking a lot of walks outside because I didn't have a treadmill or a walking pad. So I was taking hour-long walks every morning outside, and it was really nice. But then it became a scheduling issue, a convenience issue in our family for me to do that. And so I got like $130 walking pad in my basement, which is basically just like a super duper cheap treadmill that doesn't go very fast. And so for the past few months, I have been walking on the walking pad. I think I got it in like April maybe or May. So all summer, I've just been walking on the walking pad every morning. And for the most part, not every morning, but like most mornings, which is why it's deceased now. So spoiler alert, I walked on the walking pad every day. I got all my steps in, whatever, but I still haven't been feeling great. Like I haven't been feeling a strong sense of like peace. And so the walking pad eventually broke, right? It just completely crapped out, right? And my husband tried to fix it. Like he's really handy. He's really good at fixing electronic things and motors and mechanical stuff. And he took a shot at it and he thought he fixed it. And then I tried to get on it the next day and it laughed at me. Like it said, no. So I thought, you know, I will just go outside. The weather is fine. I can go for a walk outside. My daughter is sleeping in now till like 7:45, 8 o'clock. I can take a walk at 6 a.m. Can I just tell you, the walks that I've been taking outdoors in this gorgeous like morning twilight time, it's incredible. It's incredible. I see bunnies every morning. I, get to smell the smell of the earth. I walk by a river, and that's incredible just to see all the birds and the fog coming up off of the water as the sun rises. Like, it's been a really beautiful experience. And I think that is what I've been missing, is like just giving myself time to be in nature, to be outside, to be alone with myself. Being alone with myself is really scary, right? There's a lot going on in there. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of neuroticism. There's a lot of, whatever. There's a lot going on in there. But I think to just move my body, be outside, be with myself, is part of my spiritual life. And I think that's why I keep thinking about going back to ballet as well, like going back to ballet class. And I haven't been willing to commit to that yet, but there is an adult ballet class within like a 5 to 10 minute drive of my house that I could go to on Sunday mornings, which is kind of ironic, right? Like on Sunday morning. So maybe it's time to just like do it. Just go for it. Just, that is my church. Go and do that, right? I mean, I certainly spent many a Sunday morning committed to religion, right? Committed to these experiences with a church community. And I miss that. I miss the community. I miss the music. I miss just having time to reflect on my life and what I want out of life and how I want to behave and whatever. And I think maybe a Sunday morning ballet class would be a nice replacement, right? I've also been thinking a lot about like, where else can I get community, right? If I don't, because religion does a really great job of having all of that sort of baked in, right? All of the things that humans need, which, community, meaning, purpose, certainty about things, right? Rituals, rhythms. And those are all built into religion. You've got holidays, you've got a liturgical calendar in a lot of religious denominations. And so I was like, well, where else can I find that rather than like going back to the least offensive version of a church, right? And my kid's school actually has been amazing for that. And this year I was kind of leaning towards bowing out of volunteering at their school. And we're not in the early childhood class anymore, the parent childhood class, just because of our schedules this year. But there is a rhythm in Waldorf schools. There is a rhythm to the year. They really focus hard on seasons and how, there's seasons for inhaling and seasons for exhaling, seasons for, kind of hibernating and going inward, and seasons for being outward and expressive and exuberant, and, celebrations. And so I think the Waldorf calendar is kind of, and community is kind of the closest thing to religion that you can get while still being secular. So I think maybe I will try and lean in a little more to that too, because I do believe it is important to have rhythm and benchmarks and celebrations throughout the year, right? Especially when you're raising children. Like, there really do need to be those things, those routines, those rituals to kind of ground yourself in, just as human beings. And so, yeah, I think that might be another great way to do that without all of sort of the baggage and being required to believe in things that are not super logical. To me, anyway. I will not ever take away someone else's spiritual experiences or their beliefs or truths or whatever, but I think for me, and I did have many, many, many spiritual experiences when I was a Christian, but I think now I'm starting to see, like, those are just human experiences that I attached meaning to, like a specific meaning because of the context that I was living in, right? So anyway, yeah, I guess this was a little different. This was a little maybe deeper or more controversial than what I normally talk about, but that's just where I'm at right now. And there's Archie. So anyway, thank you for watching. I love you. I love your continued support, and I will see you in the next video. Mwah. I love you. Bye.